Open us with prayer.
Be glad to.
What number are you?
11.
Bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for another day. Thank you for your love and your grace and your Son, Jesus Christ. Lord, lead, guide us, and direct us today that our actions may be pleasing to you. In Christ's name we pray, amen.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Walker. We're going to start out with a little bit, because we had some requests of people having to leave a little bit early. Not that everybody's not imported early. I don't mean that. We're going to start out with Georgia Student Finance Commission. If you would, please raise your right hand. Please state your name and where we're at and on the line numbers, please, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'll be as brief as I can. I'm Lynn Riley, the president of the Georgia Student Finance Commission. We are in section 44. I'd like to start on page 52 of your tracking sheet under 321.1, dual enrollment. I just want to bring a couple of topics to your attention this morning. Dual enrollment has had significant amount of activity in this current fiscal year, and we thank you for the additional appropriation that you provided in the amended budget to meet the demand of the dual enrollment program. At line 321.1, the governor recommended a $15 million increase to the base budget to bring us up to $91.3 million for FY 2025. The House agreed, and we do anticipate that we will need all of those dollars in FY 2025. The other topic that I would like to bring to your attention this morning is 325.1, Hope Grant. The governor's recommendation was to reduce the base budget by $20.7 million. The House agreed to that reduction of $20.7 million. However, we would request consideration of moving and redistributing some of the dollars in our Hope Public program. The cut to the Hope Grant program is significant. A 25% cut will really put us in a pickle as we will not have sufficient funds to cover all of the Hope Grant demands in FY 2025. Currently in FY 2024, as of the end of February, we are already at $60 million that we have distributed in Hope Grants. So we recognize that the governor's office had moved the $20 million out of Hope Grants to provide additional funding for our pre-K programs. That's lottery funded as well as the Hope Grant is. However, we ask that the Senate consider a redistribution of the about $16.7 million between the Hope Grant program and the Hope Public program. It will help us rebalance the allocations we have in the FY25 budget until such time as you consider the amended budget at this time next year. And should we need additional dollars at that time, we will of course be seeking that consideration. We just don't want to short the opportunity, or have a problem with paying out Hope Grant awards in the second semester, the spring semester of FY 2025, for all the students that we're hoping to encourage to attend our colleges next year with our Georgia Match program that are helping guide them to enroll in our technical colleges where the Hope Grant is most often used. So, Mr. Chairman, those are the only two major adjustments in our budget for FY 2025, so we ask your consideration. I've had the conversation with the governor's office yesterday, and they support us suggesting this redistribution between our HOPE programs for FY 2025.
I think when we talk to TCSG and USG, I'm going to want them also to address the match program, because that's been apparently so far so highly successful, so we'll have to see how it goes. Okay. Yes,
Mr. Chairman, we've had a significant increase in applications for the upcoming FY25 year, and that's very encouraging as we need the trained workforce of tomorrow as quickly as possible, and I'm sure that the Chancellor and Commissioner Dozier will be happy to give you additional details. But we look for this rebalance in our HOPE programs to allow us to ensure that we can pay the students grants and the scholarships that they're seeking.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions of the committee? Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your consideration.
Just remember now, you owe us one. We're going to do Board of Regents. Mr. Chancellor.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the the schedule change, and if anybody would like to go with me to meet a noon appointment in Savannah, I'd be happy to drive you there. So I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before I begin on the 25, I just want, on behalf of all of our institutions, the USG and our campuses, want to thank you and the members of the committee for the amended 25-24 budget. We're very grateful for that to Lieutenant Governor and Senator Tillery and all of you in that regard. There was a lot of rejoicing when that was voted on, and I think our campus is going to use that very well. Along with what Lynn just said, I also want to let you know that this Georgia Match program is going exceedingly well. We are, I think, absolutely getting students that weren't doing anything as far as going anywhere, and it's been a huge success. So I want to thank her and DOE and TCSG and the whole group that worked on that. So we're looking forward to that. So today I'll turn my attention to the fiscal year 25 budget for the University of Georgia. I think you see it can be found on pages 33 through 50 on your tracking sheet. And we've tried to provide all of you with a two-pager that summarizes those FY25 recommendations for the university system. The House version of the budget includes a net total increase in state funds of $200 million to support the university system and its agencies. However, there are three agency-wide spread adjustments I'm sure you all are already familiar with related to pay increases, health benefits, and teachers' retirement. And these line items are found within all the programs of the Regents' budgets, and I'm going to address these for the agency as a whole rather than program by program, if you don't mind. The 4% cost of living increase that was very much appreciated, $97.3 million there, not to exceed the $3,000. Unfortunately, in our calculations, we forgot about FICA and TRS. Both Buster and the federal government would like their money, and it's going to cost us another $17.6 million on that. This was an issue coming out of OPB. They've acknowledged that, and that is a request that we would need to fill. That it's a whole of $17.6 million for TRS and FICA on the $3,000 raises that you all were graciously provided in that regard. That does not address the any of the other employees that we typically talk about, the non-certified employees. This is fully funds those COLA increases for the state funding employees, and so we'll have to get that money somewhere. The next agency-wide request is a $24.2 million to support increases in health care costs for active employees and retirements. This obviously healthcare is always particularly challenging, and this was a higher than normal increase in projected costs due to inflationary pressures. And while you try to make your best estimates, this was $24.2 million short in that regard. And the total cost for us initially was calculated at $77 million, but plan design changes and an increase in premiums actually helped bring the number down. So we were trying to be as efficient as possible, but it still is left a hole of $24.2 million in health care costs. The last agency-wide item is the $8.3 million to reflect the changes in the TRS employer rate from 19.98 to 20.78. And you'll see this obviously in other education agencies adjustments as well. So the recommendations also include statewide adjustments totaling $3.8 million for DOS premiums, GTA, and GBA, which you also seen in other agency budgets. So those were the agency-wide issues that I wanted to bring to your attention. I know you've heard about them, and we'll hear about them more from other agencies as well. Specifically relating to the USG, and this is kind of on us. We have a request for $574,636 to support our health insurance increase for our B units. This is something that we just overlooked there with our cooperative extension service. I know you all are very favorable toward what they do across the state. It's $468,000, but the total is $475,000 there, and we've shared that information with OPB, both the House and the Senate budget offices. So we would appreciate very much in being able to include that $575,000 in the budget request. You all remember, and we are very much appreciative for starting the partnership campus of MCG in Savannah, as on the Georgia Southern campus of in Savannah there. It is supporting that partnership. Initially, you all did the capital, which we felt like we got by based on using the assets of the Waters Building in Savannah from a capital perspective, and starting that of only like $1.6 million last year. We felt like we were really getting on the cheap, but this is really going toward to the education part of those medical students starting. You've done this before as other cohorts, as you increased other cohorts for 3 years, and it's going to take about $4.692 million for Augusta University to support the cohort of 40 students in this partnership campus in Savannah. So that is a request of $4.6 million to support the Georgia Southern campus of the Medical College of Georgia partnership on the Armstrong campus. So that those are really the requests that we have. As I indicated, you all have been very good to the university system, and we appreciate it. And we also, while I acknowledge the amended budget, we're very glad as well to see that $66 million restored in the base of the formula growth there as well. So thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman. Hearing none, I'll get up and go.
No, wait. Don't leave so fast. Was that Senator Walker?
Morning, Mr. Chancellor. And I know you got a long trip ahead of you and a long day, but just to be clear, as you were going through that, I got $17.6 million to pay the FICA and TRS on the pay raise.
Right.
That's not in here.
Right.
And the House didn't add it either, evidently. And then $24.2 million for health insurance.
Correct.
And then I heard $575,000 for health insurance for the B budget.
Yeah, there was a 8.3 for the TRS percentage changes there as well.
So that was TRS, not health insurance.
No, the 24.2 was the health cost for employees and retirees. The 8.3 was for the percentage change of TRS.
Okay.
And then you were headed to the 575.
Yes, sir.
That is what we overlooked in our health costs for our B units, co-op extension and other B units there. We just didn't pick that one up. So
I've gotten 2 or 3 texts about that this morning. So just wanted to be sure I was clear on that. Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you.
So, Mr. Chancellor, just to be clear, those numbers that you just referred to, Senator Walker, are in addition to this sheet.
The request,
in addition to $200 million.
yes, it is in addition to what, that is the request that was not picked up by the House.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have, Lindsay's got all those.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for Chancellor before we let him go?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
You can hit the road.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We got so much paper up here. Golly. Okay. We're gonna start back with ERS, and I think I saw Jim somewhere. ERS. Oh, Yeah, Jim? If you would, when you go through this, tell us which line you're on, because that's, so we can reference it back. And your name and who, yeah, you should be on.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
I'm Jim Potvin. I'm the Executive Director for the Employees Retirement System. We are starting on Section 25, line 161.1.
151.1.
Overall, the changes in the FY25 budget are very modest for the ERS. This first program is for what we call the Peach State Reserves Defined Contribution Program. These plans, the 401k and the 457 plan, are actually self-funding in that the administrative costs are paid through administrative fees and forfeitures in the system. In addition, we are not projecting any change in the budget between FY24 and FY25. Line,
Just say.
okay. It's line 161 in my group, in my page 27 of 72.
Okay. Everybody ready? We're not, the main thing, we're not in any hurry. Well, we do have a period of time, but we sure want to make sure everybody follows, everybody understands what's going on. So,
Shall I
so if
repeat?
you're not in the right place, please don't hesitate to let us know, and we'll wait on
Shall I repeat what I said about 161?
it. Yeah.
Deferred Compensation Program, Peach State Reserves, is the state's 401k and 457 plans. You'll see the budget for those in line 161.1. We don't anticipate a change between FY24 and FY25. The plans have been growing in terms of the number of participants, but we have offset some of that with better rates in our more recent contract. In addition, they are self-funding. We don't ask for a direct appropriation for these plans. 162.1, the Georgia Military Pension Fund. This is the modest supplemental plan for Georgia Air and Army National Guard members. This is the request for the state's contribution, the what we call the ADEC, the actuarial contribution for this plan. Very slight decrease between FY24 and FY25 of $11,717. Similarly, for the Public School Employees Retirement System, line 163, the state also directly appropriates the actuarial contribution for this plan. Again, we're seeing a small decrease. This one is about $1.2 million in the ADEC between 24 and 25. And finally, 164.1. This is the overall operating budget for the Employees Retirement System and the administration of most of our plans. We receive most of that from the trust fund, and we build the costs for that into the annual contributions that the agencies make to us. So again, very little in the way of direct state appropriations, with the exception of, for the third year, the proposal is to include $26.75 million to the system so that we may pass that through to retirees, presumably in the form of some kind of one-time supplemental payment. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Senator Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Mr. Potvin.
Good morning.
On line 163.1, I've been, as you know, real interested in, the Senate has too, in the PSERS program, and we passed legislation out of the Senate to, it's still in the House, but to increase the multiplier for the school bus drivers, cafeteria workers retirement from $16.50 to $17.
That's correct.
And then the old retirees are, I think, at 14.85. something like that.
And they would be raised
they would
to-
also be raised to 17. This is the multiplier times years of service per month, so it's a very modest retirement plan. But the actuarial cost to fund that increase was roughly $5.6 million, if I remember correctly.
That sounds correct. Yes.
It's good to see that you got a decrease. Apparently that fund is doing well, and maybe people are dropping off too, but what level is it funded at percentage-wise? And I'd like to just bring attention to the chairman and the committee that the Senate, I think, would like to fund that increase, and with the assumption that the House will pass our bill on PSERS. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's correct. And the funded ratio as of the FY22 valuation, which is the most recent approved valuation, was about 88%.
Jim, on the public school employee retirement system, the governor's number does not match the base budget. The ADEC report, which showed $28,322,000. Do you know why there's a discrepancy?
Correct. We've been doing small increases in the multiplier each year in recent years, and every time that happens, there's an additional. It has to be funded, of course, by the General Assembly. So that number, the $28 million number, was the number produced by the valuation report a couple of years ago when it was produced for the current year. But then when we do these increases, we have to do add-ons to those amounts, and that accounts for the difference.
Also, we got a Senate Bill 105.
I think that's the bill
Is
to
that what
which
you're talking about?
the
Yes, sir.
chairman was
Okay,
talking about.
okay, good.
So the delta, maybe if the governor put in a decrease of excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, you're fine, yeah.
He put in a decrease of 1.2 million. If we need the 5.6, the delta would be,
Plus 4.4.
4.4. If we could plus that up, I would be tickled to death. I've talked to the Chairman Tillery about this.
You know, it seems like in this budget, it's plus, 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 plus. So, Jim, bring us up to date. I know several of us have had a lot of conversation with you about state retirees, and you just hit on that a few minutes ago. And the governor and the legislators were kind enough to put $500 million in the amended budget. And of course, that moved it up a good bit. We're still that actuarially that puts us about 60% funded or some 70% funded. What is that number?
So the most recent valuation has us at 72.2. I don't expect much change between last year's number and the one that we're going to do in the valuation in April. The $500 million will affect the next valuation, and I expect it to increase by about 2.5% as a direct result of that contribution.
So we should be pretty close to 75%.
Yeah, it would be in the mid-70s.
So we're really not that. If things hold up good, we're really not that far off from probably looking at some type of really serious systematic COLA for the people.
We are attempting. So we have a formula in place and that formula has a inflection point at 80% funded, where it would automatically improve. That's the kind of intermediate term objective that we're shooting for with the infusion, and with hopefully some good investment returns and some other things. So that's where we're at.
I know that makes Senator Orr and myself more happy. We're still not real happy, but we're more happy.
Follow-up question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I didn't understand quite your last response. You said at 80%, you were talking about inflection. Maybe you could clarify your response to the chairman.
One of the factors that is involved in the determination of the COLA, according to the funding policy of the system, is the funded status of the system. And at 70%, 80%, 90%, the formula changes sort of automatically. So when we hit 80%, the formula will change in a positive manner to provide a slightly better COLA for people automatically.
And the COLA last year was what?
0.5%.
0.5. And when you say slightly better, you mean they might get to,
Well, the same formula, if we had been at 80% last year, would have provided a 1.0% COLA.
very paltry, I think we'd all agree.
We'd like to see it be improved, yes.
So to answer the question, we're still a ways away from a 3% COLA to match the TRS people. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's a fair statement.
Okay, so would that be another $500 million or $1 billion? You have any clue?
Well, there are multiple factors involved. I don't envision a time that the formula would provide a flat 3%, and I don't think that it should. I think that it should respond to various conditions. Right now, what we have is a trigger on inflation, which of course is quite high right now, the funding status of the system, and recent investment results, the last 5-year investment results. So the combination of all of those things are what go into the final outcome. It is possible to get a 3% COLA, but we need to have positive outcomes in all of those measures.
I think, I'm not belaboring the point, but I think many of y'all know how passionate several of us are about this, because we've got some people, older people that have retired on $20,000 a year, and now they're on food stamps or some type of other subsistence, and I don't think that's what the state of Georgia is all about. But we thank you for working on that, working very hard. So, no other questions from the committee?
Just clarification, it's still accurate there that there are only 5 states, including Georgia, that are has set this 100%
So
for unfunded liability?
I saw some updated numbers more recently. Rather than talk about states, there are about 120 systems in the 50 states that kind of fit the definition of large retirement system. Of them, it's roughly 10 to 12 systems that are at 100% funded or better. So it's roughly the same percentage that I gave you before, but the numbers are slightly different.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Most welcome. Thank you.
Professional Standards Commission. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'm Matt Arthur, and I head up the Professional Standards Commission. I will be speaking from page 29, and we're in section 27. And the line items that I'm going to talk about start on 30. The House made no changes to the governor's recommendations, and all the items except one are statewide changes.
And we're talking about 178.1.
I'm sorry, yes, sir. 178.1 through 178.6
Thank you.
are all statewide changes. Item 178.7 provides an additional $5,695, and that will expand our partnership with HBCUs. And we have hosted, and we're going to host again an HBCU summit to kick this off, where all the HBCUs will come in and they will collaborate with each other. We'll provide professional learning, and part of that professional learning is a pipeline. We've seen a difference in the last 3 years. The percentage of minority teachers in the state has gone up to about 28% just over the last 3 years. It's not where it ought to be, but we're gradually moving in the right direction, I would say. And so I appreciate this money and appreciate your consideration of this money for us to continue that. Some of the HBCUs didn't even have education programs. They had gotten rid of them, and now they're putting them back in. And so we're working hard in that area. So I appreciate the consideration.
Any questions? I think we're still about a half asleep.
I was hoping I'd catch y'all that way.
Well, we thank you, sir, and we appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir, Mr. Son.
Governor's Office on Student Achievement, sitting on the front row.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
I woke up at 5 just for the.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. I'm Joy Hawkins, and I head up the Governor's Office Student Achievement. So we start on page 30 at 79.1, and we go to 182 on page 33.
Yes, ma'am.
The first are statewide increases, like every other agency, 179.1 through 179.5. And then at 179.6 through 8, there are some reductions. And these reductions are part of our 1%. The first one, however, is from House Bill 19 from last year, which was a disagree. And so that is just accounting for that $250,000 that will go back into the budget. And then the reclassified position is at 179.7. And then we, on 179.8, in the negotiation with DRC, the Georgia DOE was able to include the erasure analysis that we were paying for in addition to the contract with DRC. And so that reflects an $82,000 reduction. The remaining budget is the governor's recommendation and the House agreement. We're appreciative of the continued funding for these programs, and we just ask that you continue doing the same. Any questions?
I'm going to just for 1 minute, give us an update on the Governor's Honors Program.
Oh, thrilled to do that. So we had auditions and interviews at Georgia Southern. We're in the second year at Georgia Southern campus. 1,500 students and their parents attended. It was smooth as glass. The team at Georgia Southern makes it so easy. But from those students, 650 to 700 will be selected March 22nd. So we will be identifying those students and then letting you all know which students are in your district so that you can do something to congratulate them. They've been through a very rigorous process at that point. This year, we established a strategic plan to really reach out to rural districts. And there were about 20 districts in the state that had not nominated students in the last 5 to 10 years. And so from this effort, we were able to recruit 6 students from 4 districts that had not nominated. And these 6 students went on to interviews and auditions. And so I'm anxious to see how many actually make the final cut. But, you know, and I met one of the families from Chattahoochee County. And to me, in talking to the parents, I said, you know, this is amazing. Your child is honored to be at this level, whether they make it or not. And so when you think about those 6 students from those 4 rural areas that have never had that opportunity, we're really changing the game. Because as you know, a little healthy competition is always a good thing. In addition to that, we've done a lot with efficiency on the back end on our inventory that had accumulated for 60 years. And so everything is barcoded now. We have everything, down to pencils and erasures. So I know it sounds a little crazy, but you know, after 60 years, we had 8 storage units full, and we really didn't know what we had. And so we've taken 2 years, and this move to Georgia Southern really expedited that process. So very pleased with the program generally.
I know I think I talked to him, but I know you also talked to Representative Wiedauer. And his daughter was there, and he said that she told him that she was with the type student that was there. She was just so blown away, even if she doesn't make it to the next level, to be a part of where she was at through the interview process. So thank you.
Well, and I appreciated your being there. Next year, we'd love to have as many of you as possible. you really cannot get a sense of the excitement from the parents and the students without being there. And so we would love for you to attend. We're also hosting a college and career fair in July on Georgia Southern campus. So any of you who would like to attend or have businesses who would like to be a part of that, we would love to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for it.
Do you want to do some of these smaller ones too, since Raymond's already out?
Let's just keep going. Okay. The next is TRS. I think I saw that. There he is. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Buster Evans, Director of the Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. Let me say, first of all, as a lifelong educator, thank you for your support of education. Now, as going on nearly 10 years at the Teachers Retirement System, we have over 500,000 members, and they greatly value the plan because it is a significant part of education policy in this Georgia. We exist to be a part of helping to recruit and retain quality educators, and we would like to think that that has been a part of the success of our organization and our business. I'm going to try to be as quick as I can, maybe even to be as quick as my friend Matt Arthur was, but I'll be speaking from line 338.1. It is page 63 of my document, and this may be one of the only budgets that you see that is actually a reduction from direct operation funds. Last year, our direct funded amount from the legislature and governor's office was $83,000 because this is money that goes toward paying the cost of living adjustments from people who merged into the teachers retirement system back in the 1970s. We don't have a lot of these people left, unfortunately, and so that number is only now down to $62,000 a year. So that is, again, a reduction of $21,000. Below that, you can see some information about our operational budget. Our overall operational budget is $55.4 million. That comes totally from within the fund and not from direct state funds. One other number that I'm particularly proud of is our agency turnover number, 6%. Our team significantly values the opportunity to serve our educational community, and I think that is reflective in the fact that we do have a pretty low turnover rate because, again, they count it a privilege to be able to be involved in the educational community as well as to serve you and the state of Georgia. So, Mr. Chairman, unless you or committee members have any questions, I'll help you guys make up some time.
How many people are in the teacher retirement system? No, I'm talking about receiving benefits.
We have approximately 250,000 active contributing members, and we have approximately 150,000 retirees, people getting a benefit.
Now, you and I have talked several times about how many years a person is in the system before they retire. And I think the last conversation we had, that number is continuing to drop. Isn't that right?
It is. The average length of tenure upon retirement is 25.5 years. And interestingly enough, the average age of retirement is now up to 60 years. So we have actually seen an increasing age in retirement. You can speculate what that might have been, but I think pay raises have made a significant difference in people hanging around longer. That means their retirement benefit is going to be longer eventually. We would also suggest that maybe inflation might have kept people around another couple of years. But those are actually good numbers that help us because, I say this sometimes jokingly, but it's very serious. The longer our employers pay them, that's less time that we have to pay them. And that actually helps to add to the sustainability of the fund.
I actually had someone text me yesterday from Statesboro. It was a gentleman that his wife was a teacher, but I think she had her master's of 6th year. But at Chick-fil-A in Statesboro had a sign yesterday starting out at $19 an hour, and his wife sent him a text and how she was very upset because talking about teacher starting salaries compared to Chick-fil-A starting salaries. So I think we still got a lot to work on with the DOE people, and we're going to continue doing that.
Good.
Thank you. Senator Orrick.
Thank you. Glad to have you with us. That was an astonishing number that we just heard, that you have a 6%. Can you elaborate on that? How many employees are there?
We have roughly 200 employees serving both in the plan administration side as well as the investment side.
Well, that's a record breaker, isn't it, for any state agency to have that a rate that low? I mean, we hear from agencies with 40% turnover.
Again, our folks are so proud to be able to be a part of the educational community. I'll tell you, we have made culture an important element of our organization. We believe that culture beats most anything else that we can do. We are not the best paying, despite the fact that we do have some large salaries that you're aware of. Our average rank and file employee is not that highly paid, comparatively speaking. But they just value the opportunity to serve. We do some things that we think is important, and they work hard trying to support educators in Georgia.
And you have all your positions filled, or that's another question?
We do currently have all but maybe one position. We have a customer service agency that takes calls. We receive, a lot of people don't realize this, we got about 1,000 telephone calls a day from teachers all across the state. And the calls, there are three areas that are really competitive for us, where we have to try to make sure that we remain competitive. In IT, is competitive. Financial services, accountants in the metro area, it's a very competitive field. And then call center operations, you don't realize how many hundreds or thousands of agencies run call centers, whether it's corporations, state governments, or whatever. So those are the areas that we particularly try to stay ahead on.
Thank you.
Senator Kilpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, it seems to me that people are beginning to realize that retaining people in the system working longer is beneficial. And I know that some people that retire end up wanting to go back and work. So do they maintain their benefits? Because I seem to remember we passed a bill about that some time ago.
You did. Thank you for that question. And Chairman and I have had a number of conversations about that this year. There are a couple of provisions where retired educators can come back to work. Any educator can come back working 49% or less as a teacher or whatever role that they may end up being in. We have about 15,000 of our 150,000 educators come back to work after retirement. Many of them work as substitute teachers. Filling extremely valuable positions for our school systems. The other provision where they can come back was under House Bill 385 that allows a retired educator to come back to work full-time in an area of critical needs. First year of operation, we had 242 who came back and worked full-time. Second year, we're up to 370, round figures as of last count that we had. So the primary areas that they're coming back to work, special education, mathematics, and science. And I just think it's commendable that we have retired educators who are coming back in those critical needs area, and it warms my heart that the number one area is special needs students.
I think we're Senator Kilpatrick, we're also working on a bill to expand that because of the teacher shortage, to look at not only, I think that particular bill you're talking about, it has a 30, they got to be in system 30 years to retire and then come back. Bill we're working on has dropped that down to, like Mr. Evans says, down to 25 years, but it also then allows it to be extended further to say if you need a civics teacher or a social studies teacher, that type of thing. So we're working on that, and we tried to get it done this year, but when we got it through the Legislative Council, they said because of retirement type bill, it has a retirement provision, we had to go back to the very first of the session. So we're looking at expanding that even more than what, that was a great bill you mentioned, but we're looking at expanding it even more. So thank you. Senator Sims.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To add to the conversation about retirees returning to the workplace and education, teaching, perhaps yes. I've found that when superintendents return, and sometimes even principals, it's not such a good idea, because those individuals are not nearly as committed as they should be. And any time that the leader in the building is part-time, that's a huge concern, especially, and a lot of times they'll say, well, in the rural areas of the state, we can't get anybody, and that's not true at all. You have many residents that are prepared and ready to step into those positions. It's just sometimes boards of educations want to save money, and really, you're not saving anything. You're hurting the children and the staff more so. So that's something we really need to take a look at. There are some bad apples out there that do it just because of the extra money, and it's not good for our children and our communities.
Yeah. Thank you for your comment. Mr. Evans, anybody else have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity to talk with you this morning. Look forward to working with you during the rest of the session.
We're going to kind of go back in order. So we're going to start with DECAL, Department of Early Care and Learning. Good morning.
Good morning. Page 1.
Yeah, page 1. Yeah, that's right, page 1.
We're page 1. Thank you, Lindsay.
And number 1 in our hearts.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. When several of us were walking over this morning, we commented the moon was beautiful this morning, and we appreciate the opportunity to see it. It really was, yeah. I mean, so... Yeah, so we are on page 1, and our first change is item 121.4. And this is an increase in funds to raise our CAPS reimbursement rates to the 50th percentile of the market rates for child care providers. It's an addition of $4.6 million. So once our COVID dollars run out, which is in September of 2024, we will go back to paying CAPS rates at the 25th percentile of the market rate, which does not reflect the true cost of care, and it makes it difficult for child care providers to recruit and retain teachers, and it requires CAPS families to pay more out of pocket. So this additional $4.6 million will allow us to pay at the 50th percentile, which will be a nice increase in rates for CAPS. Our next changes are on page 3 in the pre-K program. Our first item is 123.5. It's an increase of funds for a computer refresh. It's an addition of $49,000. This funding is requested to replace our IT equipment for our 53 DECAL pre-K staff that support pre-K all over the state. We haven't had a refresh in 2019, so this will help us to put this money in our base budget for continued computer refreshes. The next item is 123.6. It's an increase in funds to expand our summer transition program. The governor added $6.1 million, and the House increased that to $8.9 million, which will allow us to serve the same number that we're serving. We served last summer. We will serve this summer 396 classrooms for our summer transition program, and we appreciate the support of the House and the Senate on that.
And explain to our people what that is.
Sure. The summer transition program is a smaller part of Georgia Pre-K. It is our 6-week, it's actually our 5-week summer program. We have 2 versions. One is a rising kindergarten program for those students that need an additional 5 weeks of support before they enter kindergarten, or we also have a rising pre-K program, which is primarily for Spanish-speaking students that need an additional support before they start Georgia Pre-K. So it's a smaller program. We serve about 4,000 students every year in this program all throughout the state.
How do families know about that program?
So a lot of times they are recruited by the program. If it's a rising kindergarten program, usually they could have been in a Georgia Pre-K class, and so they've been identified by their teacher that they need that extra support for those 5 weeks. They could already be in a program, in a child care program in a 3-year class, and they're already registered for a Pre-K class and they speak Spanish, and programs would recruit them that way. We also have a list of all of the sites that will be available on our website. So it's a very community-based recruitment process.
Is that pretty much spread throughout the whole Georgia?
It's a much smaller program, so it's not in all counties like Georgia Pre-K. I believe we're in about 50 counties because it's a much smaller program.
And why is that?
It's just a funding issue.
Okay. Well, I think what we're
And
seeing,
it's a younger program. It's been in existence for about 12 years.
you know, and we're seeing more, not only Spanish speaking, but other languages throughout Georgia now. So it's going to be, for DOE, it's a bigger challenge than ever. Because I know in Claxton just brought in for a manufacturing company, a lot of families from Haiti. So they put 80 children in the Evans County school system that don't speak English.
Right.
Zero English.
Right.
And so that's a challenge. So that's what these people at DOE are having to deal with on an everyday basis.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Continue, please.
Our next item is 123.7, and this is an increase in funds to provide the $2,500 salary increase for pre-K teachers and assistant teachers. It's an add of $24.9 million. Next item is 123.8, is an increase in formula funds for teacher training and experience. This is an ad you see every year for increased number of years of experience for our teachers. It's an add of $1.2 million. The next item is 123.9, and it's an increase of funds for a one-year phase-in to reduce our class size in Georgia Pre-K. It's an addition of $9.5 million. Pre-K currently has a class size of 22 students. You want me to stop?
Yeah, keep going, 'cause I got some questions about
Okay.
that.
Pre-K currently has a class size of 22 students. This funding would allow us to reduce that class size back down to 20. That's where we were when the program originally started 31 years ago. In 2011, during the Hope reform years, when we had to make adjustments to Hope and Pre-K, class size had to be increased so that we could save dollars. This is the last remaining reduction from that needs to be restored. And that's not really the reason that we asked for this reduction in class size. We know that smaller class sizes are better for students. They're better for teachers. You can provide more individualized instruction for these students. And nationally, this is the one thing we kind of get dinged on is our high class size for Georgia Pre-K. This will be a phase-in approach because when we increased the class size from 20 to 22, we had to reduce the number of classes by about 400. We will be adding about 400 classes, but we will have to do that over 4 years. It's unrealistic to think that we can add 400 new classrooms. So our proposal is to do this over 4 years. And if funded, this upcoming school year, we would add 100 new classrooms. So we would spread out the number of pre-K students over more classrooms. We would not serve less students.
So in some of these communities that don't have the ability to spread them out, what are we going to do? We just going to send them home?
We are not going to send them home. We always have flexibility in our program. But as soon as this budget passes and the governor signs it, we will be working with our current classrooms. And they already know that we're looking at this. So we're hoping that they will be able to find space to add an additional classroom across the state. But
And
again, it will
hopefully
be a phase-in approach.
And hopefully we can get our capital outlay program that Senate Bill 360 that we introduced in the Senate to get passed in the House to expand that ability to build pre-K classrooms.
That would definitely assist on the public side, yes.
Can I quote you on that?
Sure.
Okay. Senator Parent.
It's too late now.
I'm sorry, I got carried away.
I'm sorry.
Let me go on and let you finish, and then we got some questions.
All right, our next change is 123.10, and this is an increase in funds to upgrade our provider management system. It's an add of about $612,000. Georgia Pre-K has a very old provider management system that's about 25 years old, and this will be updating that system to make it more automated, better security, and enhanced features for both our Pre-K staff, but also for Pre-K providers. The next item is 123.11. It's an increase in formula funds to reflect the increase in the SHBP per member per month rate for the certified teachers at public Pre-K, which is an addition of $2.4 million. And the last item is 123.12, which is an increase of funds for 3 Pre-K administrative positions of $383,000. This would be a grants manager to help us to manage the grants that we send out the door, a teacher credentialing specialist, and a Pre-K summer transition program and outreach staff, given the expansion of STP over the last few years. And those are all my items, but of course I'm happy to answer any questions.
The board is lighted up like Christmas tree here.
Okay.
So let's start with Senator Parent.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. I do have a number of questions, and let me know if I need to stop so that others can get in time. First of all, thank you for all the hard work you're doing on our Birth to 5. I've become even more interested and invested in the Birth to 5 space over the last couple years, partially through doing the Hunt Institute and other programs that I know that you've done also, and just the knowledge that kids' brains are like 90% formed by 5. So I think we have a lot of work to do. I know you're trying really hard. So when I run through some of these things, please know that that's how I'm approaching it, is knowing you're trying to lift things up and I'm trying to figure out how we can better partner and become more of a leader in the 0 to 5 space than we are right now. So first of all, I want to get clear on a couple numbers. So there were how much money of COVID relief funds did we put into CAPS? Was it 100 million?
Into CAPS?
Yes.
It was probably closer to 500 million.
And how much of that is now being phased out?
Okay, let me start at the beginning. So we received $2 billion total in COVID relief dollars. $1 billion of that went out the door in what we call stable payments. So those were monthly payments directly to child care providers based on a formula around their loss of enrollment to help stabilize them. Mm-hmm. That money stopped in September of 2023. The money that is continuing is mostly around CAPS, which is access, where we're paying the full cost of child care for 73,000 children on CAPS. And we're also paying an increased tiered rate based on their quality rated. I'd have to get a calculator out, but I would say that's probably around $500 to $600 million that we're putting directly into CAPS. That will end September of 2024.
So the $600 million is just ending?
Yes, it's gone away. It's one-time dollars from the federal government. We do not have it anymore.
What discussions have had about trying to limit the damage that obviously that's doing? Because isn't it the case, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're phasing 20,000 children off CAPS?
We will have to reduce our numbers back to 50,000.
So yes. We're phasing 20,000 children out of CAPS. Isn't it the case that we're already only serving 15% of eligible families?
When we serve 50,000, it's about 15%, yes.
And without this additional appropriation, we're going back to 25%?
Right.
And doesn't the federal government recommend 75%?
That is their benchmark, yes.
So the federal government's benchmark is 75%. Right. We were at 25% until, the numbers are just like horrific for where we are. And I just want everyone on the committee to know that, because I think we have a ton of work to do in this space around appropriation. And I know Commissioner Jacobs is trying really hard. Okay, so moving on. If we were at the 75%, that would not only be in line with federal guidelines, but my understanding is the way it's designated is that would mean that families that are receiving CAPS would be sort of able to access 3/4 of the opportunities.
That's how they define it, yes.
Right, yes. So 3 out of 4 opportunities would then be eligible for them, meaning that those providers would actually accept the subsidy.
That's how the federal government defines the percentile definition, yes.
Okay, and so we need $5 million to get to the 50%, which I obviously support. I would prefer to see us higher than that. Isn't it the case, though, that if you're doing it there's a big movement around trying to look at the true cost of care, which you mentioned in your remarks, versus like this market rate survey, because isn't it the case that if you're doing a market rate survey, you're essentially perpetuating a system where the wages are already depressed and too low?
So there are some limitations to the market rate survey, which is how we set our CAPS rates. We do a market rate survey as required by the feds every several years. And you're right, providers report to us what they are charging. That does not mean what it costs them. They are charging the parents what they can afford. There is an opportunity for us to look at an alternative cost model, which would look more at the actual cost of care, which we have used some grant dollars to try to build a cost model. It's still in the works. We would have to get the feds to approve our alternative methodology to set CAPS rates, and no state has gotten a methodology approved yet. However, we are in the middle of writing a new federal plan, which is due in July, and we are discussing if that's an option or not to get that approved for that plan. Now, we haven't done the calculation to see But it all comes down to the bottom line of how much money we have to spend. So even if it cost more, we would have to serve less children without more money. We would be paying the providers more, but it probably would result in less children being served.
Less than the 15% that were,
Less than the 50,000 that we have to get back down to.
right,
The
which is
15%,
15%
yes, yeah,
of eligible
yeah.
families.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
which is very
Right.
low percentage, in my opinion. So, and just to go back over this point, because I think it's so important, is that we know we've got a crisis already because a lot of centers aren't going to be able to provide health care, for example, to their workers. So when you look at market rate, wouldn't it be the case that you're leaving all of that out and perpetuating that sort of low wage, lack of access, lack of quality care?
There are definitely limitations to the market rate study, yes.
I'm so glad to hear that. I want to talk to you more about, I'll do that later, about the opportunity you mentioned.
There's a person in my office that does that that's much smarter
great.
than me.
Okay, I'll get with you to find out. Two more questions. First of all, on this.
What about one more?
One more? Okay, that means I have to pick. Let me ask about the language and literacy endorsement pilot.
Okay.
Okay, so how many, because we've been doing so much work on literacy K through 12. Well, 0 to 5 is also critical.
Yeah.
Right? In whether, are you doing science of reading? Are you, right? So I know that Commissioner Jacobs has worked hard on a pilot program, right, for an endorsement for centers that are within quality rated. How many centers are in that pilot, and what is the status of trying to expand that?
We have done 2 cohorts of the quality rated language and literacy endorsement, and they've been very small because we like to get things right. I believe the first cohort was about 15 providers, and I believe the second cohort was about 15 providers. So that's like a total of 30. We have paused that pilot because we're doing an evaluation to make sure it works. It's a lot of resources for us to put forward with our staff. There was no additional funding for that. We were doing it with existing funding. And so while the feedback from the programs that participated and received the endorsement are good, we want to make sure that teacher interactions have actually improved because of that additional professional development that we're providing. So we're currently in the middle of an evaluation.
Thank you.
Senator Dixon.
Thank you, yeah, and I appreciate you touching on that. I'm concerned about the funding to CAPS as well. What kind of increase would you need? I know you're having to come back down to that 50,000 or 15%. If you had another 10 or 15 million from the state, what would that cover?
Well, once we go up to the 50th percentile, it will cost us about $7,600 per child per year. So you could do $10 million divided by 7,600, and that would give you the number of additional children we could serve at the 50th percentile of rates. I don't have that number off the top of my head, Senator. I'm sorry, and I can't.
What was that number again per child?
So if we go up to the 50th percentile, which is what the governor recommended, the House has recommended, and we're hoping you all will too, that will mean we will pay about $7,600 per child per year in CAPS.
Okay. Thank you.
Senator Walker.
My question's around CAPS also. Where's the line item for the CAPS, first of all?
It is on page 1, 121.4.
So Senator Dixon mentioned $10 million. You know, when you're doing a budget at your household or your business, you have to prioritize, and you have to, sacrifice some things, prioritize other things. I mean, I know getting the class size down would be very, very beneficial, but that just kind of jumps off the page at me. I'd rather see that money go to CAPS and leave the class size at 22.
Well, I think the good news is it's 2 different fund sources. So the class size is funded by lottery dollars, as Georgia Pre-K is funded completely by lottery dollars, and this would be state general funds. So you're looking at 2 different pots of money.
So you can't shift it.
I don't make that decision. It's never been done before. The only lottery dollars we receive are for Georgia Pre-K, and I believe that's a constitutional requirement.
I mean, these families are trapped in poverty, and without child care, they can't get out of poverty. And it's quite a conundrum.
Great point.
It's something I mean, you made me aware of that I really wasn't, so.
CAPS is a very important program, and it's very important for low-income working families. Families have to meet an eligibility requirement of less than $40,000 a year for a family of 4, but the median income for a CAPS family is $24,000 a year. And they're having to work or go to school at least 24 hours a week. So there is also a work or school requirement. So it is a program that tries to support you in becoming self-sufficient. And it does its, I hope it does its job, but you're right, we will go back to serving 50,000 children when the federal dollars run out.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Sims.
Gosh, I don't know where to start now. We were talking about increasing the CAPS funds. Show on line 123.6, that's the summer transition program. That's my concern. I'm concerned about that one. And if I'm not mistaken, did we say that there are only 50 participating programs around the state? It's been in action for about 12 years. It's been there for about 12 years. I would like to know the names of the who's being served or where these programs are located. And we could also, we were talking about adding additional money to CAPS. Could we not, unless that's a program change that we can't make either, decrease some of the monies that go to these summer programs, put it into CAPS, because we've just increased it by $2 million plus. And even with some of put some things that are not necessarily a priority, maybe a priority for some. And then I have a concern about phasing in students, phasing in the 400 students, and we're only going to do 100 per year. Can you
It's
go
100
back?
classrooms, so we will have to add 400 classrooms to reduce the class size from 22 to 20. We cannot add 400 classrooms around the state in 1 year. We will add 100 each year. It's
Why
classrooms.
would it be impossible to do?
Because the capacity is not there. We have to give programs the ability to find classroom space for us.
You mean the districts?
It could be also childcare providers. 50% of our pre-K classes are in private childcare providers, and 50% are in public schools.
So the public schools would not be able to find those, fulfill that capacity?
We would never 100% fund pre-K in public school. That's not how our model has worked for 31 years. The way we're able to serve 159 counties and 80,000 students on a typical basis is a public-private model, and it gives parents a choice of where they want to send their children.
That's something to think about. But I would like to have a copy of where these programs are located. And also, when we talk about working with non-English speaking students, is that what the summer programs are specifically designed for?
No, it's a small part of the summer program. So it's the piece that's a rising pre-K program, which has historically been for Spanish-speaking students, because our longitudinal study shows that specifically Spanish-speaking students come in behind their peers. They make great gains during their Georgia pre-K year, but they're still leaving behind their English-speaking peers. So they need that extra 5 weeks in the summer to try to catch them up before they enter pre-K. We have added additional languages over the last few years, but sometimes it's very hard to find a teacher that speaks another language, so that can be the challenge sometimes.
And sometimes they catch up and pass those students that are English speaking. Am I right?
I don't have that research. I don't know. I couldn't
Is there a
talk
way
to that.
we don't
I don't
use
have that type
data?
of research. I don't have that type of research. No.
Well, that would be interesting to know, because I think it's important that we take care of them as well.
Senator Horry.
Oh, I don't have one.
Okay.
It's capacity.
Oh, I'm sorry. 13? Okay, I'm sorry.
My question is also about the summer transition program, and I know we put money in the amended budget
Yes.
to increase that program, and I'm not sure if that was to increase the number of counties that were doing it or what, but the 5 weeks, is there potential for that to be repeated with a different cohort of students during the summer, or it's always just intended to be 5
It's
weeks?
always just been 5 weeks. It's really hard for us to convince programs to do anything more than 5 weeks because it's hard to get teachers in the summertime because they need a break too, many of them. It used to be a 6-week program, and we've been very flexible to try to continue this program at the same level, and so we reduced it to 5 weeks because that's what programs said they needed to keep their teacher in place.
Any other questions? Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank
We
you.
got a lot of work to do, and as you can
We
tell
do.
by the group, you know, we all, through the literacy stuff, we're learning more and more about our children need to be reading and at a lot earlier age. So
Yes.
thank you so very much. Thank y'all for those great questions. We're going, Department of Education. Thank y'all. Over here.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Russ Grome. I'm the CFO for the Department of Education. In the interest of time, I'll go through the major House changes to our budget, and I'll omit some of the stuff you'll see throughout the budget, such as the 4.1% raise, and some of the enhancements that, and maybe some of the enhancements that were in the governor's recommendation, but we can discuss those.
Yeah,
if
thank you.
there are questions. We are on page 5. Starting on page
Line number more so.
Yes, sir. The first change is on page 7, line 137.7. This is in our central office budget. This is a $200,000 adaptive sports program, education-based athletics association that will allow over 40 forms of physical disability students to participate in team sports. Our next major change is page 8, line 138.7. This is a reduction of about $2.7 million. This reduction is to provide $100K for all locally approved charters. It removes the state charters because they receive the funding in the state charter supplement. On page 8, line 139.1, in our communities and schools program, there's the $1.5 million. This is similar to the $1.5 million that we discussed in the amended 24 budget. This is a nonprofit organization serving at-risk students by implementing locally defined comprehensive stay in-school programs, and this money allows for 8 new districts and growth in that program.
There's also a federal match on this program too, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's a federal match that's
I think
included with this.
that's probably as much important as anything. Okay.
Yes. All right. On page 9, line 140.8 in our curriculum development program, we have $177,000 increases for life sciences industry certification. The Georgia Bio provides hands-on science training and equipment for teachers in rural Georgia for the middle and high schools. On page 10, line 140.9, you'll see a $4.9 million increase in our curriculum program for AP PSAT. This is merely just an administrative move to move the PSAT AP funding base out of testing and into curriculum, which is actually where we in the department administer this program. On page 10, line 140.10, is a $319,000 for one STEM International Baccalaureate. I cannot say that word, but the request is for one STEM exam for an IB student and one additional exam for free and reduced lunch, which is similar to how we fund AP STEM students. On page 10, 140.11, you'll see $1 million for computer science professional development for teachers related to Senate Bill 108 during the 2019 session.
How's that going to work? I mean, how are we going to take that $1 million and flush it down, or is it going to be? Are they going to have to apply? School system's going to have to apply for grants, or?
I believe that.
Because I know, where all this came about, is that North Carolina, I think, requires at least one computer science program for every student in high school. There's something along those lines. I think that's probably where this came from.
Looks like that, I've got a write-up I can share with Chairman after this meeting that details out how their plan is to
Okay,
spend
okay.
these
Would you
funds.
mind furnishing that to all of us?
Yes, sir.
Not right now, but you can get it to us.
Going on, I've got page 14, 145.11. We've got $750,000 for a mentorship program, teacher retention. Education First Foundation trains teacher mentors and sports educators in their mission to serve the Georgia students. So this is to increase their funding for that program.
These are first-year teachers, right? That's what the mentor program's for?
That is my understanding, yes.
New teachers, new. So I guess new would be first year.
And I've got some information I can share on this as well. All right, page 14, 145.12, we've got $362,000 for one-time CPR training for students. On page 15, 146.6, we've got $6.3 million funds to cover reduced paying students' breakfast and lunch funds. This was also in our FY24 budget. However, we utilized ESSER funds to pay for this last year, and we would like to continue that. You know, the state pays for free lunches for these students, or their free lunches are covered by the federal government, but this allows for all the reduced pay students. So I think it's around 40 cents per meal to be covered as well by the state. Page 25, line 158.9, there is $2 million for construction industry certification.
What line is that?
That's 158.9.
Wow.
It's all for you.
Mm-hmm.
Also on page 25, 158.10, there's $1.5 million for 3 heavy equipment simulators in 10 schools. This is in our CTAE program. Our CTAE program.
You know, I think that school systems need to do a better job. If we're going to put money in for that, they need to do a better job recruiting from these industries to match that, because these industries could Greg, these industries could go in and put their logo or something on the side of that machine, and every time that child sits down, that student sits down in that machine, they see that logo. So I think y'all need to do a better job, wherever the schools are, do a better job of getting the industry more involved. And I think that came out of our Workforce Development Study Committee too, getting industries more involved in the technical side of these schools and promoting, and not only doing these simulators there, but also maybe buying other supplies and all for the schools, because we have got to get our communities more involved in the school systems. Thank you.
And then the last major change is, as I mentioned in the curriculum budget, in 159.8, our testing budget, is the reduction of $4.9 million to transfer APPSAT to the curriculum budget program.
You know, the thing that we all get we're kind of getting hung up on it, I'm hung up on it too, is that we got this report out about all the money that schools have got, all the systems got. They've got total reserves of about $6.8 billion and undesignated reserves of $5.6 billion. Is DOE doing anything to require some type of planning process or a 5-year plan for these schools? Because I know in my particular school, Bullitt County, $65 million. And so I called the superintendent. I said, what's your plan for this? And he laid out the plan for it. But you know, we see in school systems, small school systems, that's got, Burke County got $154 million in the bank. My problem is we're continuing to put money in there when they got money. And I know a lot of this money came through the COVID money and that type of thing, but is DOE doing anything about working with these systems to help them come up with plans on this? Because whether it be supplies for classroom or something.
Yes, we do work with our school systems on how they can utilize their reserves, whether it's for facilities or school expenditures. It is a local decision on how much they keep in reserves and how much really how they do spend those reserves, but we do work with them and offer our suggestions on where they could use those, whether it's in the various programs within.
Yeah. Has the members of the committee, have y'all seen that report? Y'all have not seen that, but we'll get you a copy of that. It will blow your mind.
What's the source?
Ma'am?
What's the source of the report?
It actually came from Department of Audits. Department of Audits put it together, but it has every school system in Georgia, and it tells you how much the total reserves are, and then it tells you how much the undesignated reserves are. So you got, I think Atlanta Fulton County is like $450 million. I mean, some numbers are just out of sight. So my concern is why we got to get these schools to be more proactive instead of saying the state's got to pay for everything. Okay. Get off the soapbox. Okay. That's wrong. But we'll be happy to get that to every member of the committee. Yeah. You know, y'all have heard me say this. One of the things I've learned, a phrase that I've learned to hate up here is called local control. And because you know, we all were raised in. I think looking through, most of us, maybe a couple of us, were not raised during the Ronald Reagan administration. But Ronald Reagan said, "Trust but verify." And a lot of this stuff, I know the DOE sends down to school system, but I don't know how much y'all follow up as far as making sure they do what they're supposed to do. Is there any type of accountability? And that's probably not something fair to ask you, but is there any type of accountability, like on the dyslexia testing or the vision testing or the hearing testing? Are we following up and making sure these schools are using that money for that, or and then what are they doing if a child does have a vision problem?
Yeah, I guess it would depend on which area we're discussing. I mean, some of our grants, which are our state, some of our application competitive grants, we do follow up as part of the grant process. Whether it's QBE, we have a whole financial review section that, compiles their financial statements, tracks to ensure that they're meeting what the requirements they are to get the funding that they are getting. With its facilities, we work with them with facilities and how they spend and do their local 5-year plans. We work with them very closely in their nutrition funding on how they spend those funds. And school improvement, we work very closely, I would say, across the board in each area, CTAE, and how they can utilize the fundings. And then our federal programs with the federal dollars is very much involved in ensuring and our monitoring.
Well, y'all gave us a report. Y'all gave us a report of the 5% schools. I think that looking at for the literacy coaches, I think that's where it came from. Is DOE doing anything to work with those schools on a daily or monthly basis to help them figure out what's going on with them? And I'm sure a lot of it's poverty-related programs that always, as Senator Walker was so passionate about a while ago.
Yeah, and I wish Dr. Johnson were here. She is our deputy superintendent for school improvement, and if you've met Dr. Johnson or heard her speak, she's very passionate about her work with the low performing schools, and so she's out there. I think every day, every time, every meeting that we're on, she's on the phone. She's usually visiting one of these districts, talking with the superintendents, trying to get them above that line. So yes, we do work, and Dr. Johnson would probably be better to.
Yeah, thank you. Senator Dixon.
Specifics.
I just kind of jumped off where I was at. Dealing with the charter schools, I had a couple of meetings. I know you said they cut that funding. I think that it was at $10 million, 100,000 per school. There's 103 charter schools in the state. Explain that to me, because that with page 8. Dealing with facilities, and I know that's very important to the state-approved charter schools as well. And you said something about there was another.
This was a cut done by the House, and I believe, and I'm not an attorney, but it relates to the legislation that was passed. But within that charter facilities grant that was for funding for local charters, in order to get each of those local charters up to $100,000, they removed the state charters. And I believe the thought is because the state charters also receive additional funding through the state charter supplement, which is to supplement the local funds that they would get if they were at a local district. So that's my
Yeah,
understanding.
and I would like, and I appreciate you saying that. I'd like for us to look at that, talking to those folks, and, I think it's about 50-50 as far as locally approved and state approved. I think moving forward, talking about, school choice and that being an important measure here in the state of Georgia, our state charter schools, are a kind of a more of a middle road, when we're talking about dealing with school choice and supporting, the state approved. I think we need to look at maybe restoring that funding. I'd like to see that go from $5 to $10 million and get the $100,000 per school for the state approved, because I think as we move forward, dealing with local control and local school systems, I think my experience in my district, they typically push back, and the one charter school that was approved in my district this past year met resistance at the local level and came to the state for approval, and I think we'll see that more and more moving forward.
Thank you, sir. Senator Parent?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so I was looking for, I'm trying to get clear on where we are in this budget for funding SB 48 and HB 538. I just found on 14, line 145.7, that references SB 48 for dyslexia screening. But am I correct that the governor has put in requested 11 million for? Can you explain where we are with both of those?
Yeah, there is, and I believe it's in non-QBE. There's an additional 5 million increase in the budget for dyslexia screeners, and then another additional 5 million in the testing budget for universal literacy screeners.
How many coaches does 5 million? Is that the 60 coaches?
Are you talking about the literacy $6.3 million enhancement?
I'm curious about all of it, so yeah.
Well, I've brought with me our director of literacy, Amy Dente, so she could kind of speak to the literacy coaches.
Good, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks. I believe the $6.3 million is for the tiered coaching model. That is separate from the 60 school-based literacy coaches that will be placed in the CSI schools. Those coaches are being paid for with federal funds, school improvement funds out of Dr. Johnson's division.
Okay, so we're doing right now 60 coaches, but not paid for by the state.
Right, those are being paid for with federal funds.
And the CIS is?
Comprehensive support and improvement. And those are the lowest 5% of Title I schools, and those are elementary schools. And so there are 60 elementary schools on that federally identified list. And so as an effort, so there's actually two prongs to this coaching discussion. There's the tiered model that was a proposal that DOE made to the governor's office back in the fall that I believe is in his proposed budget for $6.3 million. And so that's one prong. And another prong is in an effort to go ahead and provide a strong level of support to those CSI schools, we are using federal dollars to pay for a coach in each of those elementary schools that's on that CSI list for 3 years.
So that gets us 3 years. If we were to look at trying to put a coach in like the lowest 25% of schools versus the lowest 5%, okay, so I understand that the lowest 5% is not even coming from state money. How much state money would we need to appropriate to put a literacy coach in the lowest 25% of schools?
The low-end cost of that is $30 million, and the high-end cost of that is $38 million. And that would be the addition of about 250 coaches over that 60.
And where are we with the screener? Didn't the State Board of Education cut a few of them, I think? From the
State Board cut three of the screeners that were on the list of
Okay.
60.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Yes, and I know you've done a good work on that, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious if, how many systems had already bought one of the lower ones based on what had been put out earlier that now has been
I
cut?
don't have those numbers. Now, just anecdotally, I know that those three were not three of the widely used screeners in our states, but I don't have the numbers on that. That's just anecdotally from working with districts.
Okay. Is DOE planning like a big push to try to get the proper funding in the state budget for implementation of 48 and 538? Because right now it doesn't, either there's like I'm not seeing it because we're using federal funds to even do these initial steps.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we've been very hard at work for the
I know
past-
you guys have. I'm
We've
just
been very
wondering,
hard at
like, I'm
work.
just trying to level set so that everyone on this panel who are appropriators understands if we want to get to where we say we want to get to, what does that involve? That's right. What's the pathway? Like over the next 5 years, what's the?
So.
What do we need? What do y'all need?
So we have a partnership with the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy to provide the professional learning that is required in the Georgia Early Literacy Act. And that's been very successful. As you know, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, the Rollins Center received their International Dyslexia Association accreditation for those 10 modules. We've successfully migrated 9 of the 10 modules over to Georgia Learns. Over 10,000 of those courses have already been completed by Georgia educators. The 10th module will be migrated over by June, but the Rollins Center is revising that, and so we're waiting for that revision before we migrate that over. And so that professional learning is already in place. We also have a huge rural initiative of literacy professional learning that has impacted over 2,300 teachers so far with IDA, International Dyslexia Association accredited professional learning. The piece of professional learning that is not included right now and that is part of that $6.3 million enhancement is a tiered coaching model. And so we know that when professional learning is implemented, if you just go with the research and the professional learning, but you don't do anything to help people bridge that learning to practice, we know what the statistics say about implementation then. And so this tiered coaching model that we have proposed will help ensure that implementation at a high level. And so one group described it as letting it happen and making it happen. And to make it happen, to bridge to practice, to that kidney-shaped table in the corner of the classroom where the teacher is working face-to-face with students. Sometimes that requires coaching and it requires hands-on support to move from what you've been doing that maybe is not best practice, maybe it's not evidence-based. It doesn't mean that anybody walked into their classroom and said, let me see how I can do a bad job of teaching reading today. It just means that they might need help in bridging that professional learning to actual practice. And that's what the tiered coaching model is all about.
Well, yes, I'm a big fan of the tiered coaching. I just want to know how we can expand it to the lowest 25% and how much money that costs. Because it's everything you said, we agree with that, but that's not addressing the dollar amount that you would need to expand it, which is
Yeah.
the
Amy,
immediate question.
$30 million at the low end and $38 million at the high end.
Thank you. Amy, just clear up something. Senator Sims has a question also. We're putting these coaches in the lowest 5% schools, and that's federal dollars, correct? How long have those federal dollars been available?
I don't know. I don't know that answer.
Okay, good.
But also keep in mind that there are existing literacy coaches in our schools.
Yeah, okay. Senator Sims? This is so important. I don't mean to run over, but this is important stuff for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
As
Mr.
everybody
Chairman.
is.
How many employees do we have in the Department of Ed?
Okay.
Can you give me a figure?
I haven't seen the the latest reports, but it's close to 1,000, but that also includes our 3 state schools.
The schools?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We are constantly looking for contracting with folks to come in and work with our schools, work with our everybody. What are these employees supposed to be doing? Is that not a part of their jobs? They're already being paid. I mean, I'm confused. Maybe I'm not asking the right question, but am I confused?
I work side by side with districts every day.
Not you. I know you're
I'm
working.
a DOE employee.
But I'm talking, I mean, every time we get to a new program, we're having to hire folks. We're having to do contracts with folks. What is the responsibility? What are the responsibilities of those individuals that are employed in the Department of Education? Don't answer that. I'm just putting that out there because that's something we need to look at. We are constantly spending more money to bring in what we call experts. Are we not hiring the people that should be working with our schools and our school leaders, our teachers? That's just a question, just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you. One last, Senator Dixon, one question.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had 2 questions. Sorry about that. One was as far as on dealing with like the skilled trade programs, like the construction side of it. I think one of your schools won that one of the contests this year, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I know the ask that they had in the House was about $4.5 million, and they got $2 million of that. Didn't know if y'all had any comments to that. Would love to see that fully funded. Seeing the participation across the state and what it's doing, introducing kids to construction and skilled trade, I think is very important with the demand on, on the in that industry, and also the focus of kids that may be going to vocational school versus college.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dr. Wall does an amazing job in working with industry, and I think the superintendent, as he's been very vocal that he's for different pathways for kids, and the construction has been very important to him as well, the construction related field. So yeah, we're very supportive of that.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
I do have a write-up if you don't have it on those.
What's that?
The equipment simulators and the construction, I have a write-up on that.
Okay,
as well.
good deal. Yeah, and I'd heard from some folks in that program, as far as replacing like welding equipment that's very outdated that could be dangerous for the kids to work with and all. And so just looking, I'd love to see that. Just more of a personal, more than a question to you, just making more of a statement. Would love to see that funding restored. And then one question for our former Teacher of the Year, dealing with like college classes that kids would take. I know the Cambridge Association, I know they look to be added to the AP and the as far as options for kids to take. Didn't know what y'all's thought was on that.
I think, and this is not really my department, but having rigorous course offerings for our students is always a good thing. And, part of having those rigorous course offerings is getting students ready for whatever they're going to face after they leave high school, whether they go to college, whether they go directly into a career or into the military or into an apprenticeship program. We want them to understand that level of rigor, and that's what programs like that do, is they provide that level of rigor in a place where the student is still supported by all of the constructs of our public school systems. And so my experience as a practitioner and as a parent is that those are always good things for our students, and the more choices they have in those areas, the better.
And would that cause any burdensome on, I guess, more the local school systems if we added? I know it wouldn't cost any additional, wouldn't need any funds appropriated to it from the state.
You know, I think that those are things that are part of those district and school improvement plans that are required, and it depends on what the goals of each school district are. But typically when school districts engage in that kind of work, it's because they, you know, decided that that's something that their children, their students need at that level.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm with you. More options they have and opportunities to take those classes, I think is important. Thank you.
Last question, Senator Say.
See, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to just say thank you for your service. I truly believe education is the key to freedom. And if we are continually doing all these things that I'm hearing, we're on the right path, but we can't leave no child behind. So we got to make sure we reach children where they are every day. Thank you.
Thank y'all for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your work. The Georgia Commission on Holocaust? Oh, yeah, goddamn, yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. I don't have very much to say to you. We are so excited that...
You can say thank you.
Pardon?
You can say thank you.
Yeah, that's why I'm here, to say thank you. Yes. Yes, we are. We're so excited about our new programs and projects that are coming up and the support that we're getting right now from the governor and the legislature. The Georgia Commission on the Holocaust has a lot of programs that we do. We have a very tiny staff, and we're all out there working. Most of us have teaching experience for years. I'm Sally Levine. I'm the Executive Director of the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust. I'm also a Museum Teacher Fellow of the National Holocaust Museum in Washington. I know that our chairperson had come here previously to tell you about our project, so I'm not going to go through all of the details of that, but I'm going to tell you where these increases are going. Aside from the project, we do a lot of teacher training. We go to universities throughout Georgia, and we work with pre-service teachers, teachers in training, to teach them about not only the history of the Holocaust, but also about how genocide doesn't happen in healthy democracies. What does it mean to be a citizen? We are a state agency. We think that's a very, very important piece here. We also have traveling exhibitions that are going through the Georgia library system right now. We've had 88 reservations from libraries all across the state. And in most cases, we bring a speaker program to these libraries. We have created lesson plans for teachers from grades 5 through high school, because that's where the Georgia standards are for teaching about this subject. And we have lesson plans available through the Department of Education, as well as on our website. We have a YouTube channel. We do live programs. And we are still very, very fortunate that we still have some living Holocaust survivors.
Oh, wow.
And we bring them to venues, churches, community groups, schools throughout the state. We also have a liberator who turned 100 years old last week, and he still goes out and speaks.
Wow.
So we're very excited about that as well. And we also send our staff members out to speak about history. We know that good history is important. We know that Holocaust history is one of the few histories that has deniers and people who don't believe what happened, and so we understand why it's also important to teach about evidence and about primary sources. So we do a great deal of that as well. We are out there. We are working with teachers who are in service as well. When I was sitting there sending emails before, they were to university professors in education departments who are creating curriculum and training teachers for the future. So we're just excited, and we are so grateful that you have put your trust in us, and we will continue to work hard throughout the state. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, ma'am. You have no questions. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Great story. Jordan, yeah. Georgia Public Library. This lady was smiling while you were talking the whole time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. And
Good morning.
very happy to be here today, and I'm also just here to say thank you so much for everything that is included. I think Chancellor Perdue covered most of the increases that the Georgia Public Library Service has because we're included in the university system. The one big increase that we had is for an increase in health insurance, employer contributions, the per member per month that went up this past January will go up again next January and the following January. Our agency, through our formula, pays for 276 librarian positions around the state, and this funding will allow us to cover that health insurance increase, and the governor and the House both recommended that. So we greatly appreciate continuing to have that, and thank you for everything you do for our libraries.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being here. We are winding it down. Georgia Military College, General Caldwell. We're saving the best for last, Greg.
Mr. Chairman, committee members,
Can I
we're
say
fired
some-
up too, just like the Holocaust Commission. We love our mission and what we do. I'm the president of the college. I've been there for about 11 years now.
Can I say something real fast?
Yes, sir. Of course, sir.
I have been so impressed, and I'm sure some members here have also been impressed, of the pages that have come from the Georgia Military Prep School.
Oh.
They're so respectful. They're so nice. They're so poised. They're confident. I guess I need to quit talking.
Well, sir, thank you for that. I'll provide that back to the leadership team and the prep school then.
Thank you.
That's great to hear.
Have you seen that too? Yeah. Thank you,
But,
sir.
yeah.
Please proceed.
No, sir, listen, we're very thankful for the what we've been given. I mean, it's been a real blessing. We've looked at what the House did, and we'd ask you just to support that. And I can walk through it if you'd like at this point.
Please, sir. And tell
Sir,
us which line you're on.
Sir, I'm on page 48, and I'm talking about our junior college, and that would be 296. There's no change.
Okay.
There's three items, 296.1, 2, and 3. So that's the total budget for us to operate the junior college, about 11,000 students.
Okay, sir.
Sir, the next one would be the next page, page 49, and that would be the preparatory school, the K through 12 program. And that's 297, 1 through 5. There's a net overall reduction of 200,000, but we understand that, and we're good.
Okay, sir.
Sir, on page 53, that's the Georgia Military College Scholarship developed by the General Assembly for men and women in Georgia serving in the Air National Guard or the Army National Guard that a general member of the General Assembly wants to send to our college, junior college, to be a member of the Corps Cadets. They come with full tuition, room, board, fees, books, everything. But a member of the General Assembly has to nominate them in order to do that. We do not receive this money. Rather, as a student comes in, if they qualify, if a member's nominated them, they qualify, then we send the bill and it's paid for. That allows about 84 members of the Georgia National Guard every year to be serving in the Georgia National Guard, either the Air or the Army, and attend Georgia Military College on a full scholarship from the state of Georgia, appointed by a member of the General Assembly. Wonderful program. I mean, it's a great program. In fact, every time I go to a high school and I'm talking with young men and women who say, I just can't afford to go to college, I say, you can't afford not to go. There's just too many options in this great state, and this is one of them. And sir, that's it for the appropriations portion. There was a part on repair and renovation over in capital projects and bonds with the House added in. We did not receive any repair and renovation funds this year. The House did put some in for us, which we're very grateful for. It's absolutely necessary. We have about 383,000 square feet of residential instruction space on the main campus in Milledgeville, which is all state property. And so that's greatly needed, sir. We've got a long deferred list.
Okay. Any questions, General Caldwell? Do not.
Thank you. Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. TCSG. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Morning,
your
Mr. Chairman.
patience.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for your time. We are found, I gotta get my glasses on here. We are found on page 63, but the first item actually is on page 64. It's in section 46, line 340.1. I'll give you a second to get there. The first item will be on page 64, line item 340.1.
Now, his numbers are different from ours.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, 340 point.
1.
Okay, 340.1. That's cost of living. 4%.
Yes. If y'all are ready, I was trying to give you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my apologies.
No, we're fine.
The first program we're looking at in 340.1 is our adult education program. I'll cover the first 5 items like the chancellor did so that we don't have to cover it in each program. But the first 5 items, 340.1 is the COLA. When you look at it, obviously in adult education, you see that portion is $218,000. As we look at the total budget for the COLA increase, it's $11.3 million. The next item is the TRS increase. That's 340.2. 340.2 in adult education is a little over $7,400. But as we look at the entire system, I won't go through each of these by each program, it's $233,000 add when you add all of our programs up. The next item is the DOAS increase, which on item 340.3 is $7,159. For the agency as a total, it's a little over $422,000. And the next item for statewide changes is 340.4, and that's the Georgia Technology Authority. In this program, it's $6,217, but for the agency, it's $326,000. The last statewide change is 340.5, and that's the merit system assessment. In adult education, it's $7,491. For the agency, it's a little over $151,000. So I won't cover those 5 items in each program again, but wanted you to see those individually, but also from a global aspect. The first item that's beyond the statewide changes is item 340.6. It's on the bottom of that page. That is the Workforce Accelerator Pilot Program. This item is connected to Senate Bill 112. It's a bill that's been talked about for a number of sessions this go-round. It's a bill that allows the agency to put an RFP out to provide adult services through a third-party provider. This was not an agency bill. We have worked on it. Obviously, the language that's in there we are comfortable with. Depending on its passage and how much funding is put is how we'll put that RFP out. The governor had recommended $5 million. The House has recommended $650,000. My understanding is that $650,000 would be to fund 10 slots at $6,500 a slot. The next item that the next item will.
Mr. Dozier, can you explain?
Yes.
The why the House did that?
I cannot. I'm not sure if there'll be.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there'll be a change in that legislation, or it's a smaller pilot, or what the thought process was there.
Okay.
Other than it was funded at that 100 slot level.
Conversation with them or something.
Yep.
Okay, sir. We ready?
The next program, Departmental Administration, just has the statewide changes, so I'll flip a couple of pages to line item 342.5, which is in Economic Development. That item is an increase for the 4% cost of living adjustment. I mentioned that I wouldn't cover the statewide changes again, but I guess I wasn't truthful. I'll cover it real quickly. This $34,000 was left out of the calculation for the $4,000 raise. 4% raise, capped at the $3,000. So the $34,162 was added by the House just on a calculation error. This unit did not get funded for the cost of living. The next item will be in the Quick Start program, and the first item in there, beyond statewide changes, is item 343.6. It's an item that we talked about a few times now. It's a reduction of the one-time cost related to the training center for the Rivian project of $46 million. So those dollars are coming out of the budget. The next item is 343.7, and it's an item that's a continuation of the supplemental. And by the way, thank you so much for the supplemental. Very, very much needed the monies that was appropriated, and we're very thankful. This is a continuation of those monies that were appropriated in supplemental to meet existing training obligations of $4.7 million. The next item would be on would reflect in our technical education program. Item 344.6. 344.6 is that reduction that was same as in the supplemental, the reduction of the $1.1 million related to the Tools for Success program. Right below it, you have 344.7, and we're very, very proud of our enrollment growth, and this is our formula calculation based on the 3% growth we had a year ago, as well as the 0.7% increase in our square footage. That amounts to $9.4 million. When you look at that, I would like to share a little bit of great news. I mentioned in the joint appropriations and in the supplemental budget presentation that we've experienced great enrollment growth this year. And so we were at 10% for fall. For spring, we're actually over 10% growth.
Wow.
So extremely proud of the work of our 22 colleges and the efforts to focus into that. And when you look at the numbers, I've shared this, year over year, we've been very focused on making sure high demand, high paying jobs are the skills that we're training in. And so when you dive into the growth that we have, the areas of high demand have grown higher. So when we had 10% growth, we had nearly 13% growth in high demand inside that number. And we're seeing the same thing for this spring, just to give you a couple ideas. And we can't count these numbers yet. We're kind of at the high mark for spring. We'll start having some withdrawals and things that reduce these numbers. But overall, we hit over 100,000 students last week for spring, which is a record for our spring enrollment. It may drop below that by the time we have the withdrawals and all, but right now is really the strongest we've seen in a long time. Right now, that's an 11% growth. We believe it'll be closer to 10 when we're all said and done, but still extremely strong. But when you look at high demand, we're seeing aviation up 34%, RN up 24%, automotive 22%, cyber 16%. So when you look at the classes students are enrolling in, it's very, very positive, even above the numbers we're sharing.
Can I address something there?
Yes, sir.
We had a bill yesterday, or somebody presented a bill yesterday that was in a meeting to define high demand, because high demand to y'all is different from high demand Department of Labor versus another organization. So that bill was to get the groups together and decide, Senator Sim, not only what the high demand for the state was, but also what was the high demand for your area versus other areas of the state. So hopefully that will go on and get passed through so we can really know truly, so everybody will be on the same page what high demand is.
That's right, Mr. Chairman. It gives the Governor's Office of Workforce Development that role of kind of navigating the defining of what high demand is, and we think that is needed to clarify what that term means as we move forward. And we tie that a lot to a credential of value. And credential of value is really needed to connect to what is that definition of high demand. And it doesn't alleviate the localism of those decisions. It actually includes that. So it's very, very important, we believe. The next item, as you look right below that at 344.8, is a $1.8 million add, and that's to increase the 22 campus police officers. Thank you to this body for funding the startup costs for those 22 officers in the supplemental, and thank you for adding in some money to actually purchase a vehicle for those officers. This is highly needed. As I mentioned in the supplemental, we have 22 colleges, 88 campuses, but we have right at 100 officers. And when you take out our officers that actually do our law enforcement academies, it reduces it down to about 60 or 70 patrol officers statewide. So this 22 really will take school safety, campus safety to another level. So I appreciate the House supporting that $1.8 million. Would ask this body to continue that supporting that item. Can't get my words out, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. Ma'am? Yes. The next item is 344.9, and it's a yes item, and it's really just a opportunity for us all to talk about our current formula. That's something that comes up year over year on how we're funded. As you know, our funding formula was created back in really the agency was created in the late 80s, and our formula was created in the early 2000s and has not changed since then. There's a lot of debate around that formula, and we'll talk about one of those areas in just a minute. But we look forward to that discussion in this yes item. Flipping to the next page, you have a new item, 344.1001, Special Project Technical Education. The House put this in at $7.4 million. You may recall last year the House and the Senate increased our funding for three areas, CDL, aviation, and nursing. The concept last year is much appreciated by TCSG, and I think you've seen the results of the funding that was put in last year. About $8.2 million was put in to try to move the per credit hour cost of operating that program closer to the funding mechanism. It was discussed last year by the House and the Senate that this would ideally be a 3-year phase-in as we move forward. The House has come back and looked at it. With the growth, that $8 million, they're now looking at a $14 million add. This is the half of that $14 million at $7.4 million. And so as you look at it, it still is looked at as a 3-year phased in, with the second year being the $14 million, of which the House put in $7.4 million of that. The next item is on the next page, 345.4. And it is to really move some money. As you know, last year, the Technical College System of Georgia received the responsibility of employment services, and that's that Title III funding that comes from Department of Labor. As we took that over and some of the state monies came in, it was realized that we were sharing resources as far as space goes. There's $409,000 worth of money for rent that we were not going to be using for that shared space with Department of Labor, so that money is going back to the Department of Labor. So that's a transfer of funding of $409,000. The next item is to increase funds for 2 positions related on health care. This was something last year this body put in. It was stalled at the end of last session with a veto and is being put back in this year. The startup money was funded in the supplemental once again, so thank you for that startup money for these 2 positions. These 2 positions will go around the state looking for gaps in health care, a quick start-like approach to health care across the state to identify things that we need to bring back to this body to close those gaps across this state from an education purpose. This was also a recommendation from the governor's Healthcare Workforce Task Force that convened 2 summers ago, and so it's one of those recommendations as well. The next item is $643,000 for customized recruitment. This is part of that economic development agreement with Hyundai. This finishes out the funding agreement for the Hyundai project down in Bryan County to actually do job fairs, find that initial workforce, and actually recruit for them. The next item is a new item, and it's a transfer of funds from the Department of Economic Development to the Technical College System of Georgia for 2 workforce development positions to support the Hyundai and Rivian economic development projects. These were 2 positions that were originally in the Department of Economic Development. The House felt that those 2 positions should be in TCSG and just move that money over here, and we're still finding out the details of what those 2 positions would be doing. Mr. Chairman, that is the end of our presentation, but I do want to end like I kind of filtered through here. Thank you so much for the supplemental and the support this body's given us over the years. We could not continue to have the enrollment increases that you just heard without incredible presidents and staff out there, but really without the support of this body. We continue to feel the support, and that support really reverberates across the system. And when your staff has confidence that the leaders of this state believes in them, it makes a difference. So thank you.
Thank you. I see no lights. We're going to be adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.